my very unfinished library. I moved in. I've been here for about a month. I actually unpacked my last box yesterday, but things are still in disarray. So today I am very excited. I am going to be planning the month of February reading, kind of putting together a TBR, but I'm also kind of the thing I'm most excited about is that I'm going to be doing all books written or celebrating Black people, because it is Black History Month for February, and I want to read celebrated Black authors. I want to read about Black voices, and I think it's going to be a really great month. I am going to be pulling books from my shelves that I have had for a while or just recently purchased, and I'm also going to be looking up stuff on my phone in my audiobooks and ebooks to see if there's stuff there as well. Yeah, let's get started. I think the first thing I'm going to do is actually look through my phone and kind of, I know most of my nonfiction is in my ebook collection and audiobooks, and I think I have quite a few, so I'm going to do that first, I think. So let's get started. Let's go. So the apps that I use mostly on my phone, I don't have a Kindle or an e-reader or anything like that. I do have the Kindle app on my phone though, and I read on my phone. I would love to have a Kindle or an e-reader, but I'm really bad at spending money on things like that because I'm afraid that if I don't like it, I'm gonna have to spend all this money. But anyway, that's a conversation for another day. So the apps that I primarily use are Scribd, which is like a subscription service that I pay for every month, and you get a ton, not every book, but a ton of books on there included in that. And so let me go there first. I have quite a few saved books on my list. I read that one, so I'll take it off the list. Also read that one, take it off the list. Here we go. So the first one that I found is called The Bigger Picture, or A Bigger Picture, by Vanessa Nakata. And this is a really fascinating study, I think, and I think it's really important as well. It's mostly about climate change and how the voices of primarily African but Black people in general have not been included in that conversation about their needs, their wants, and also the really important effect that they can have on the planet. You know, Africa is a very large continent. It holds many countries, has many governments within it, and it has many people within it, and they all can have an opinion and do have opinions about climate change and the ways that we can change that. Do not drink my coffee, small one. And so this book is all about those voices, what she thinks about how like Black people can be included in that conversation and also included in the plans and the fight against climate change. And I think that is really fascinating. I think it's going to be incredibly insightful. So I'm going to add that one to the list. Okay, yes. Okay, this book is one that I've been wanting to read for such a long time. I actually heard it, the author of this book on a podcast. I think it was the podcast This Is Love, which is by Phoebe Judge, who is a phenomenal podcaster. And she interviewed this gentleman. His name is Drew Lanham. And this is going to be a very sweet and heartfelt book. The podcast was mostly an interview with this author about how he bird watches and how he loves birds, and I think he even is a professor of something to do with nature and possibly birds. And this book, The Home Place, I think it's the memoirs of, I can't see the whole title, but it's called The Home Place by Drew Lanham, and I think it's mostly about how Black voices and nature are not often talked about or acknowledged in our culture, and how that's really sad. And it's important that Black people have the space to commune with nature and animals, and given that autonomy the same way that white people do. And I think that's really, really important, and it's really sad that that sort of amazing part of life is cut off from them, just in like a society, in society's view, in our culture. We don't associate hiking or national parks or nature community with Black people, and I'm interested in the history of why that is. It could just be plain and simple black and white racism, but this is his story about how he came to grips with that and how he became a Black person who loved nature so much, and he had to fight through those barriers. That is gonna be great. Oh, I've been wanting to read this one for a while, and it's an audiobook. Okay, this is Finding Me, a memoir by Viola Davis, the actress, and I have heard that this book is incredibly vulnerable and heartbreaking and insightful, and I love Viola Davis. I think some of her performances are the ones that have made me like super ugly cry, just like snot running down my face. She is, I think, so talented, and she perfects her craft so with such dedication. So I think if she wrote a book about her life, I would be fascinated. So I'm gonna add that one to the list. And I think that's gonna be it for my digital stuff. I have a few more on there that I can pick up if I want to, but I think those are gonna be my main ones on my phone. So now let us look at my shelves. The shelf behind me, sorry. The shelf behind me is all of the books that I have already read. So we're gonna move over to the other shelf where all of my unread books are, but I think I have a few. So obviously I moved in and I have not organized my shelves yet. So there might be a few that I haven't read that are on here, so I have to double check. But we're gonna move over to the other shelf, which has less books on it because those are the books that I have not read. So these are all of my unread books, and I want to take you through, oh, I have some up there as well. Can you see them? Maybe. So I want to go through these and pick out the ones by Black authors, and I'm very excited. I don't actually know how many books I own that are by Black authors, but I'm hoping it's a lot. I want to read so much this month. Obviously, I just always want to be reading, so let's go. Let's go here. No. Okay. Ooh, yes. First one. The Underground Railroad. I've been wanting to read this for such a long time. Okay. Yes. Ooh. This is a chunky one, though. Oh! Fantasy. All right, moving up to the top shelf. I just have a few up here. These are mostly, I think, classics that I haven't read yet. Yeah. So, let's see here. I need to do a bookshelf tour. Ooh, okay. So, this is not, obviously, this is not written by a Black person. This is written by Shakespeare. But I might add this to the list. All right, we'll talk about this one. Oh yes, I just bought both of these specifically for this month. So these are also coming with me. Oh yes, okay. So I just received a book in the mail, and it was so beautiful that I put it on my little reading table here. It's by Jamaica Kincaid, and she is an Antiguan American author. She's a novelist and also a garden writer, and I love gardening. It's one of my favorite hobbies. And so this is just a book all about her. I think she lives in Vermont now, all about her garden that she started in Vermont and how she cares for it. And it's illustrated. It just looks, this is gonna get me in the mood for spring, honestly. And I really need that pick-me-up in February. Oh my gosh. And it's so beautiful. I'm gonna really love reading this. So I think I'm gonna add this one to the list. Again, nature writing has my heart and soul. So. So many books. Help. Okay, we're back, and I have a text. I have a mountain of books here that I could read this month, and nothing could make me more happy. First, let us talk about classics, because that's my favorite genre. We have got one, two. Wait a second, I have Beloved on my shelf. I know I do. That was one of them that escaped attention. Okay, classics. Let's start with, Toni Morrison. Let's talk about this. The reason I have not read this book yet is because I am scared of this book. I'm scared that it's going to break me, it's going to shatter me, and I will never be the same again, which of course could be a really good thing. But I just always put it off because I'm like, I'm not ready for it. I don't think I can take that much. But yeah, this is a story about a woman in post-Civil War America and her incredibly tragic life of suffering, trying to navigate that. It's especially about motherhood, sacrifice, pain, all of those things. And I hear that it is, I think this is one of the books that has changed the world, I feel like. So I definitely want to put this one on the list. That's going on there. Another classic that is astounding that I have not read yet. I don't know how I escaped this one, but that is by Zora Neale Hurston, and that is Their Eyes Were Watching God. I really love this cover. I think it's just really dynamic. And another surprising thing is that I have absolutely zero idea about what this book is about. The only thing that I have a clue about is that the cover looks like this. I'm not even gonna read the blurb on the back, like, not gonna worry about it. I want to go into this completely blind, because this is another one that's like, it's a classic, right? It's one of those books that people list as so influential. So I want to also add this one to the list, and it's not too long, so I should be able to knock it out pretty fast, I think. Let's see, do I have any other crazy classics on here? Okay, let's talk about Othello. Othello is a classic. It is obviously not written by a black person. It is written by William Shakespeare. But I have a goal for 2023 of reading just like a boatload of Shakespeare, and I wanted to read one every month. And so I think this is going to be February's pick, obviously, because it is a conversation about a black man in the 1500s, which I think is really fascinating, and I do think is important to read as kind of a celebration of black voice, not black voice, but a celebration of black people as best as it could be in like 1592 or whenever this was written, 1597, I don't know, in the late 1500s. I feel like this might be one of the first depictions of a black protagonist that white people accepted and enjoyed, at least that I know of. And so it's gonna be really fascinating. I hear that this one is actually a great Shakespeare. The last one that I read was not great, but we'll talk about that in my wrap up. I think it's gonna be interesting. Interesting is the word I'm going to use for this one. And this is, I promise, the only book written by a white person that I will read this month. So let's talk about poetry. I have been craving some good poetry, and I picked up yesterday. I actually went to the bookstore yesterday and found this. I have wanted this book for a while, and that is a poetry collection by Amanda Gorman. She is the young poet laureate who read her poem, The Hill We Climb, at the presidential inauguration. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I cried watching that. That poem really changed my perspective on the nation that I live in and the people that live in it. And I think that she is just an absolute genius. So this is her poetry collection, Call Us What We Carry. It does have The Hill That We Climb in here, but it also just has a bunch of other poems by her. And I was looking at it yesterday in the car, and it's one of those poetry books that is very illustrative. So we've got, you know, poems that are formatted with a lot of interesting imagery. She has some of the drafts of her poetry, you know, that she's written, which I think is really vulnerable and eye-opening. And I can't wait to get into this. There's a lot of poems in here. Most poetry collections are, well, a lot of poetry collections, especially modern ones, are pretty short, but this one is actually nice, and it's a hardcover copy. I am very excited about this. So that's my poetry pick for this month. The other book that I picked up yesterday is The Water Dancer. This is by Ta-Nehisi Coates, who I did not know much about, but I was on a blog or something, and I was reading about books, obviously, because that's what I do with my spare time, and I learned that Coates, I think, is the dean of the theater and performance of at Harvard, I think. So he's a professor, a dean, and he is a playwright, and I think he wrote the play that inspired the film, the amazing film Moonlight, which is a heartbreaking movie. I mean, that's a good movie. He wrote the play. I think the play is called In Moonlight All Black Boys Look Blue or something like that. I think that's close to it, but I need to pick up a copy of that because I would love to read more plays featuring black voices. But this is his novel. I think maybe his only novel or his debut novel, The Water Dancer. It's a coming of age story about a young black man. And yeah, the blurb is way too tiny for me to read right now with my eyes, but I do know it's a coming of age story about a young black man, which is kind of what Moonlight is about as well. And so I loved Moonlight. I think that his work is going to be pretty devastating, and I love a devastating book. I am going to therapy, it's okay. I've got 3 fiction books here that I could choose from. The first one that I've been wanting to read, I mean, a lot of these books I've been wanting to read for a while, but let's talk about The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. Oh, really? Do you like this book? She's like, I like breakfast. N.K. Jemisin. I have heard so many incredible things about this book. People love this series. I think it's a trilogy. Sci-fi, fantasy elements, about a world that has not 4 seasons, but 5. And the 5th season is a time when, the 5th season is a time when just natural disasters are very prevalent and they're crazy, and I think there's people in here that kind of can control those natural disasters a little bit, and so obviously there's a power struggle. I'm going to pick this one up. I think this is definitely a pick because this has been on my shelf for a long time now, a few months. So, and it's just so highly talked about. I see this everywhere on BookTube, and so I have to join the club. I'm sorry. Come here. You want to say hello to everyone? Mwah. This is Birds. She's very hungry right now. Go on, go play. Okay, and then we have 2 beautiful books here. And I don't know which one I'm going to add to the list. We have Someday Maybe, which I know is a story about a Nigerian American who has lost her husband, and she's dealing with grief and motherhood on her own, and it's kind of just a saga about her life. But I also have The Underground Railroad, which I've heard a lot of mixed reviews about. Some people think it's phenomenal, deserves all these prizes. Other people think it's mediocre. But I just love the premise of this one because it's about, you know, the Underground Railroad in America was a way for enslaved people to escape their slavery. It was kind of a secret route that you could take so you could reach the northern states and they could run away from the people who had enslaved them. And this book takes that idea and turns it into an actual railroad. So if the Underground Railroad was not just a secret route, it was actually a railroad that trains took. And it's the story of the lives of the people that take this Underground Railroad. I think this has a little bit of magical realism, and I adore a good magical realism book. Like, some of my favorite books have magical realism in them. We'll see which one of these I decide on. They both sound really good. So I'm gonna put these on the maybe list. Like, I know I'm gonna read one of them, I just don't know which one. We have the book that I talked about by Jamaica Kincaid about her gardening. It's beautiful. I can't wait to get into this one. I think this is going to be a great book to just curl up and read slowly throughout the month. Just a little bit each day. I don't know. I might want to read this in the spring, so I'm also going to put this on the maybe list. We'll see. The last book that I'm going to talk about is Nelson Mandela's autobiography, or maybe memoir, Long Walk to Freedom. And this is kind of a really big book. And I tried reading this a few years ago, I think 2019. And I really liked what I was able to read, but I just couldn't at the time. Yeah, here's my bookmark, so I got that much through. At the time, I just couldn't. It was too much. I was going through a lot in my life, and reading about somebody else's struggles was just a little bit too much for me to handle. So I put it down for a better time, and maybe this is a better time. I don't know if I will be able to finish this in the month of February, but I think it would be really cool to start it at least and just add it into my reading life. Nelson Mandela is one of my heroes, but I don't actually know a lot about his personal life. I know about the things that he did politically and for his nation and for the world, but I don't know a lot about him. And so I would love to read this book and just kind of get to know him a little bit. So that's the last book that I could pull from my shelves. I am for sure going to read these books. We have Beloved, Their Eyes Are Watching God, Othello, Calls by the Things We Carry, Water Dancer, and The Fifth Season, as well as Home Place, Finding Me, and A Bigger Picture. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's 9 books. I think that's gonna be my definite list. And then the maybe books that I'm gonna try and pick up if I have time are these 4, and that is Nelson Mandela's autobiography, Long Walk to Freedom, Jamaica Kincaid's A Garden, it's called A Garden, parentheses, book. I'm not really sure, it's a strange title. The Underground Railroad, and Someday Maybe. So that's gonna be my February. Thank you so much for coming along with me and picking out these books. I was surprised and delighted by all of the books that I had on my shelves. I cannot wait to start reading in February, and I will obviously see you in my next video. I would love to hear any comments from you about maybe if you've read these books, or maybe some advice for me about which one I should start first, or these 4 tentative picks, which one I should really pick up if I can find the time, or maybe I should move them to my definitely read list. I think February is going to be a really good reading month. I am excited. Thank you so much for coming along. I love you all. You're the best, and I will see you in the next one.